Hey, folks. 3, 2, 1, we're live. Can you hear me? Just had some microphone transformation issues, so hoping I'm fine. My spit thing is a bit sort of loose. It's supposed to sit over the mic like that. So, yeah. Can you hear me? That's great. Hi, Caitlin. Caitlin B. Good to see. I think this is like about my 6th live stream over the years, but first one proper. Like, I have a YouTube channel. I've put a bit of intention into making it a live stream thing, and I just thought tolerably audible about it. Okay. So here I am. Completely forgot what I was going to say there. Hi, Mr. E. Welcome to the first ever live stream. What I was going to say was I kind of built this around Doctor Who, because I've been doing these Doctor Who dumpster floor videos where I essentially review the episode in the form of like a comedy set with a bit of commentary, but generally to make it an entertaining thing for people who have just arrived, or they don't want in-depth Doctor Who stuff, and they don't even watch it at all. So, even if I dislike an episode, I try and find something nice to say about it. As you may have heard by now, the season finale on Saturday. It's very hard to say something about it. My script for the upcoming episode, the first one, is like 13 pages long. I don't know if it's quite as funny as it could be. It's all over the place. It's gonna require loads of like a whole day shooting. I've just finished grabbing the video sources on it, so I can't see that coming out before Sunday. Who among you watched the Doctor Who finale, and how are you? How are you coping? I think there were like a few odd lines among it. The production that I quite liked, and it was weird because it wasn't. It was probably a better piece than Interstellar Song Contest, but I don't know. I kind of like that one now, but in comparison, for its simplicity and its lack of ambition, and it's just a bad episode, and you can sit through it. Whereas the Reality War felt like a bit of a slog. It's just like really hard going, kind of cringe-inducing. Yes, I was just wondering, is that Caption Vicky? 2 different Vickies. Vicky Cake, welcome. Vicky is a partner of Amy Letts, who will be joining me in about 5 minutes. As Vicky says, she hasn't seen the recent Doctor Who yet, so might just move over spoilers there, but talk about what the show means to Amy and what she has enjoyed through the years. And then we'll do a wee bit of talking about a venture that myself and Amy and Vicky are involved in, which is the Caption Comics Festival, which is a really special festival. I'm not sure there's really anything like it in the UK. So crazy chinchilla lady, yes. We might also would be getting an appearance from my Discworld podcast co-host PJ Hart about past to talk Discworld, I guess, and writing. And this is all freestyled, no script. I'm talking a lot faster than I do on my video productions because everything else on my channel is really tightly scripted, like to the letter, 99.9%. Sending love, Mystery, and it's so nice of you to come and join me tonight. I really appreciate it. Yeah, there's been some great stuff, some great Doctor Who stuff this season. Of course, you can watch it on iPlayer and paid streaming services, I guess, or torrents for big productions that are making a lot of money anyway. That's your choice. If you want to go that route or not, it's up to you. I'm not going to take a stand on it. I'm not going to be pushed into taking a stand on it. Simon, another friend from the politics scene. A pleasure to see you here tonight, Simon. The last season of Doctor Who has been really quite interesting. My take on the current run so far is that most of the episodes are either like really, really good quality gold or just utter duds. I think there's only one that's kind of, it's all right, I suppose. It's very sort of cut and dry. There may be some spoilers, Mystery. I will try and avoid that. I can't control what the chat does. But just to say, there's been a few fantastic episodes. I think there's a broad consensus building around the fan base. I think the story in the engine, everybody thinks is rightfully so, this piece of brilliant. And it actually put me in mind of the Matt Smith episode, Vincent and the Doctor, as being right up there. But I think it's actually better than Vincent and the Doctor. But, you don't have to compete when you've got material that brilliant. And I think there's also pretty much consensus that the finale was quite infuriating. I have some people that enjoyed it seemed to also feel it was infuriating. So I am just going to check if I have any messages coming in. I'm just getting a message from Tristan. Thank you very much for that. We're going to do some Doctor Who, some Discworld. Tristan has very kindly offered to get on mic. Maybe we can talk about Press Gang later. And I'll probably talk about my love for Always Sunny. But it's just very much a kind of a freestyle and just first time doing this. And so I'm not going to come in with too many there's no overlays. It's just going to be myself and another guest on cam. If anybody's watching on Facebook, I believe it's going out there, but sadly I don't know if I get the comments from Facebook up here on YouTube. So Yeah, sorry about that. So yes, 5 people now is still better than one. Um, I've usually got one person is watching and then they will disappear, and then another person is watching and it might just be the same person. Um, so yes, I'm committed to doing this for an hour, and then we'll see. If it has the steam to keep going, we'll keep going on that. But yes, and thank you all for turning up so far. Yeah. So yeah, the newest season of Doctor Who, the newest incarnation of Doctor Who's gotten an awful lot of criticism, but I honestly think it's about there's a lot of really good stuff. The duds are just really impossible, but the good stuff is straight on. Is trying something new, which Doctor Who hasn't done. There, it is overtly political, but I think that's something we need a bit more of. I think that sort of cult stuff is a bit too kind of um, a bit too stuck in its own ghetto and needs to move outside that. Welcome our Amy Letts, who I think has been waiting a while now, but I just noticed on how to use his software.
Hi.
Say hello so I can catch my breath.
Hello. I'm Amy Letts. I am event organizer for Caption Comics Festival 2025. Amongst other
and
things.
long-time Whovian and cartoonist on the Epic Feel webcomic coming to
currently
print
just
soon.
hanging around and like inking a page of stuff.
Bring closer to camera.
Oh yeah, see
so
this one.
So we can screen cap it. Oh, it's lovely, isn't it? Nice. Amy and I met maybe about 2007, way back, 2008, back when we were both studying at Oxford Brookes University. And back then, Amy introduced me. Amy was one of a raft of people who were sort of kind of forcing Doctor Who on me in a nice, friendly way. I can't remember what we watched together. Probably something from the Pertwee Baker eras. So you've been a fan for like quite a while. How far does that go back? How does that start?
Probably my sister introduced me when I was very, very young, before I can really remember. And there were quite a lot of repeats of Pertwee and Tom Baker on the BBC, but I was kind of born in the era of of no who no new who, but of course Big Finish did a lot to fill that gap. So the audio books just really, really good, and they've so much many stories, and really well written stories in the audiobooks.
Wow, that sounds. I was born in the year of no new who. That just it shivers through me. Coming from very, very old. Well, that's not that long ago, but still, it seems like a huge gap.
Yeah, I've seen all of Doctor Who, including episodes that don't exist, which is to say I've seen reconstructions of some of the episodes, most of which are kind of hard to watch. But, you got to try, haven't you?
I don't know if, well, we must have had a chat about, because the Russell T Davies era would have been on the air when we met. I suppose it's too broad a question to to talk about. Well, I suppose, I mean, the original Davies era was generally a universal sort of success. Everybody loved it, and I suspect the same is true of you.
Mhm.
What do you make of this new era?
I've been really enjoying Ncuti. Yeah.
He's lovely, isn't he? Just
Yeah.
yes, thank you, Simon. Do not mention Torchwood. I still do have post Torchwood D syndrome.
I mean, arguably some of the episodes are silly, but Doctor Who's always had silly episodes, you know? It's just like, it's one of those.
It's had much sillier than what we've seen, and the quality has always been up and down. You get a pile of poop one week, and the
Yeah,
next week you get utter gold.
exactly. And that's kind of, you know, what you get with Doctor Who. There's
Yeah,
nothing new there.
Yet Ncuti has a. I mean, I think the crying's a bit overdone, as in so often, but he has a real energy, a real vibrancy that he brings to the role. I think I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed watching that.
I do agree. They stick the tear stick in his face much too often.
And you know, one of my
You must be like, oh my god, my eyes.
There's one of my favorite scenes actually is I think it's in Lux, where he's in the diner and he's listening to the woman who has lost a child gone missing, and
Your sound's gone. Well, 1 minute.
Okay, back yet?
Better. Yes. So you're saying about Lux?
Yes. Yes.
This is
so
what
there's
happens
this
on
scene in
lives.
Lux where he's just. Pardon?
I was just saying this is just what happens on lives.
Yes. Yes, I got the notification up about the mic, but I was expecting some craziness, so I'm not disappointed. Yes, there's a beautiful scene in Lux where he's just sitting with the woman who's lost a son. He's one of the disappeared. Just listening to her story, and he's just sitting there listening. He's not even speaking, but the way he expresses it with his face is just amazing. It really, really sells it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's see if I can do an up on screen kind of thing. There we go. Yay! Thank you, Mr. E. We are a success. What do you think? The storytelling is very different from Russell's first time out. Has it impressed you, depressed you, bit of both?
I've been impressed with it. Some of the episodes I found a bit fast, and you know, I don't really have time to process what is happening. So, but usually get it on a rewatch. But that's kind of more modern storytelling. They go quite fast.
It's a lot more political in tone, isn't it? Overtly so.
Oh, Doctor Who's always been political.
Yeah, but
That's
I
nothing
think this is a
new.
new kind of. It's much more upfront than it's been as political. Now maybe I'm just having
Oh no.
Russell's
It's always
meltdown
been
about
pretty blatant.
Tories.
I think it's been massively blatant in its politics.
Okay, I bow to your 20 years of experience.
Doctor Who doesn't pull its punches. But some of the politics you see, it's now, you know, it's now things that are perfectly acceptable. So you watch those episodes from the past and you just go, meh, whatever. But at the time, it would have been really controversial.
I mean, I guess maybe what has informed my opinion there is the fact that it is more it's just political. Certainly, it's political in story terms as it has been, but it's more politically informed in terms of diversity hiring practices. Um, in terms of, I mean, the BBC in the 70s and 80s were, they were doing a lot of holding back a lot of things, and we live in the internet age now where
Mhm.
you can share any truth. Um, and yeah, Doctor Who seems to have been more willing to embrace that.
Yeah, if I think about Pertwee era, which I will um, uh, shake my credentials of, like, I'm vaguely related to Barry Letts, who was the producer during that time.
Wow,
Yeah.
you heard it here first. Or maybe you'd heard that before, but I am impressed. Yeah.
But that era in particular, sort of like really anti-war messaging, which I think is generally lots of Doctor Who has that messaging, and also pro-environmentalism was very, very big on the agenda.
It's yeah, it's my favorite of the classic era. McCoy was my first Doctor proper, but when I went back through the histories, and I've watched most, I've given most Doctors multiple episodes, but it was Pertwee that stuck with me. That just that whole family around him, that
Mhm.
sort of self. I mean, Doctor Who has always been mostly self-contained, but it's a very sort of stable, stable architecture, stable cast, and that really appeals to me. And you've also got Roger Delgado, who's like your second lead, and is just magical. It's
Yep, Earthbound during that time. So lots and lots of unit.
yes, yes. So, yes, you haven't seen the weekend's episode, and I think Mr. E and maybe a few other, and Vicky.
I can talk about it in vague terms. I'll try to avoid any spoilers.
Go right ahead.
I think they did a lot to try and connect it to previous episodes in the series, and there's a lot of references back and characters appearing that you may not expect. And some of the references I suspect I missed, and on a rewatch I'll go, oh right, that's referring to what happened in that one.
I just finished snipping the video clips for my dumpster flower video, which won't be out until Sunday or Monday. But rewatching the whole thing back for that made me sort of see that it's not just a bunch of random stuff thrown at the wall. There are sort of links trying to be made, and it's a bit more coherent as well on the second viewing. I'm still not sure. I'm still a slog.
They cram a lot into one episode. I mind to bemoan that it is not, split up into more parts so that they could spend a bit more time on some of the scenes.
Yeah, that certainly would have
And
been
also
a
give the
good
viewer
solution.
some processing time. Because sometimes it's nice to have a pause.
So let's have a wee chat about Caption. I was saying before you came in there that and Vicky, we have Vicky in the chat, who is another member of the Caption committee. Amy is the chair. Caption is a comics festival that ran in Oxford about 1990 to 2014-ish, a few years in Brighton and Coventry, and Amy and our gang are bringing it back to Oxford in August, which is frighteningly close. I think it's about 2 months or 2 weeks. Yes, I'm a bit nervous.
Yeah, I hope the Arts Council might approve our application, but because basically with it being on hiatus for, what was it, 8 years, we come back and it was just like, no, there's no money. You have to create this out of nothing. But we got some enough to get something going with the Indiegogo, and we're really grateful to everybody who supported that. And in terms of those people who think they might be going, if you can buy your ticket in advance, that would really help us out, because then we can make the festival better.
Yeah, it's there's a short film on my channel that I made about Caption, as it was kind of like an indie thing rather than on behalf of the committee, because I think I'm at my 10th or 12th Caption by now, and it's a very unusual convention, but in some ways it's not unusual at all. So, right, if you have ever been to a comics or cult or SF convention, or any kind of convention for that matter, maybe where there's some reason why you actually want to be there. And if you think about the bits where you go into a pub in the convention, a bar in a convention, or a cafe, or you just sit around talking to people, or maybe there is a panel or workshop that feels really organic and genuinely does inspire you with fresh ideas and stuff. That's kind of what Caption is. It's kind of it's a heart, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very chill. It's very social. And it's we like to say that, you know, everybody is equal and on the same level. So, you know, professional artist, amateur artist, doesn't matter. You'll get equal respect. And you know, the fact that you've come, or, you know, if you created anything, whether it's just like a stick figure cartoon or something, then you will just get props for doing that. Is just like, yes.
Yeah, it really is that supportive.
I mean, it honestly, it got me into doing comics, and, you know, inspired me to kind of feel like, you know, it's okay, and you can do your own thing, and it doesn't have to be mainstream. And you know, the number of works that I've discovered there that just, you know, I don't know how I'd have found any other way, that are completely unlike anything that you would find in Waterstones or your sort of standard comic shop. And it just is a total re-exploration of the art form, and looking at it in, you know, all the ways that it can be used. Very much the kind of yeah, just creative, no holds barred kind of thing, as we champion independent and small press UK comics very particularly. So any sort of project that you know, you're just kind of making for the love of it, we're going to support.
I think the same is true for me. Amy's a proper illustrator. I am a guy who learned to draw just to get by, and I Caption was the people at Caption. It's quite a small event, comparatively 150 people taking it there each year, and the connections that make outside at Caption and take outside the event really sort of sustained me and encouraged me to keep making comic books. So it was massively popular.
When everybody's
So
stuck
there was,
behind their sales tables at comics conventions, you just don't make the same kind of connection. Because at Caption we have a community sales table where essentially the staff and the volunteers sell the comics for everybody, and then comics creators and fans can just hang out and get to know each other and network and make friends rather than being all salesy.
Yeah, there should be a new newsletter out now. If you go to captionfestival.co.uk, sign up for that. Tickets are now available. We need to sell tickets. You can show up in a day, but sell some tickets, and then Amy and I and Vicky aren't like hanging about on windowsills considering jumping. So throw your tickets up front. And there's also t-shirts. Oh my god, there's some great bargain t-shirts. Like only a $5. No, tenner.
Tenner.
I told
yeah,
Amy not
tenner.
to tell.
Mhm.
I told Amy not to sell them at that price, but would you listen? They're an utter bargain. Like these are some of Britain's greatest cartoonists. So like go and get those t-shirts because they're gonna go like hotcakes. The minute people realize
They're retro t-shirts from previous festivals, and once they're gone, they're gone. Never going to be reprinted.
I just have PJ Hart to come in. Amy, would you like to stay on and join us to talk about Discworld? How's your Discworld?
I can do. I've read Discworld. I've even played the Discworld Mud.
Oh, you've read which is
Everyone's like, what's that?
Let's see how this works.
Oh, I'm in. Oh, flip. Hello.
I introduced you, my good friend, PJ Hart.
Hello. How's
You're
it
on.
going? Can you hear me okay? Cool. Can I be heard? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey.
Yep.
Success. This is all very
We got you.
high tech, exciting stuff. So, yeah, I was just
This is fantastic.
pretending to do some work on my computer.
Recommended to me by this is recommended to me by Indie Truck Davies streamers. It's a platform called Ustream, which is all completely in browser. No install. I just have a little window where I can invite Amy and PJ. I send them a link there. And did you have to register anything? Or?
No.
No. Good.
And just jump straight in.
So maybe PJ and I might do a podcast at some point as a live stream. So we'll consider using this. At the moment, I could show you what's on my screen, but I'm just keeping it really simple. I'll do some introductions. PJ, this is Amy Letts, cartoonist, the chair on the comics festival known as Caption, and long-time Whovian. And we were running a wee bit over, and I asked Amy if she'd read some Discworld. She has. So maybe we can talk about that a bit. Just as a warning, I'm only about halfway through the Discworld books. I've just started
over the hump.
The Truth, which I'm absolutely loving.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that. I know Press Gang gets mentioned a lot on our podcast, so I was kind of keeping my cards close to the chest on that one. So yeah, glad you're liking it. I'm tearing through it. Usually I'm behind when we do our reads, but I'm nearly done with it already. But yeah, we'll keep that for the podcast. I kind of want to hear more about the Discworld Mud. Amy, I remember reading about it back in the day and just like being a little bit too scared to jump in.
It's terrifying. It's a text-based RPG, and I think the first time I got on it, I just wandered out into the middle of a cabbage patch and got lost, and then started to get chased by something, and died horribly.
Yeah, that sounds like exactly the sort of experience I would expect for myself in Discworld too. But so cool. Yeah, you didn't stick with it, or You did?
Not for that long. I did train up a witch a little bit, so I got a few warts, which is how it represents levels in witches, so how many warts you have.
Class.
And you cast spells by looking at people in weird ways, so you have
Brilliant.
to practice weird looks.
Just like in real life?
And also making tea.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're your two main abilities as a witch.
Very, very faithful to the source material.
Yeah, and you can go and go to Nanny Og's house.
Awesome. I could just see Andy's gonna. I shouldn't have brought it back up. Andy's gonna be dying to jump into this now. I maybe can meet in the middle, and we can maybe do the PlayStation game or something instead, Andy. Once you've got our live stream.
There's a PlayStation game.
Yeah, the PlayStation point and click adventure. I believe was also on the PC, but it's the one that gets held up. Discworld 1 and Discworld 2 sort of point and click adventures are the ones that get held up as the kind of classics. There was a 3D point and click one where you're like a private eye as well, which I think was called Discworld Noir, which I did play. It's the only one I really played to any significant degree. Actually, I'm just so bad at puzzle games. I'm so bad at point and clicks. I'm so bad at making decisions in MUDs and open world games as well. I just need to. Yeah, I need to follow the words on the page. I need somebody to tell me what to do.
Reading and having to make quick decisions.
Right. Yeah. So
I would very much love to do for the podcast PJ and I do. I'd never read Discord because I'd never read Discord. He has, and Amy has, obviously. And I would love for us to do a game episode where we do a bit of gameplay and talk about it. So if anybody can facilitate that on a technical level or help us out with a bit of resources, like please.
I think I should. I hesitate to even like add more to my workload at the moment, but I think it is all pretty doable with the technology currently at our fingertips.
I've done Let's Plays.
Yeah. So maybe Amy can help us out too. Or maybe I tell you what, we're gonna need help. We're gonna need help with the puzzles, even if we're not gonna need help with the technology.
Puzzles.
Yeah, I could. Well, maybe in this day and age, with the infinite resource of all human knowledge at our fingertips, it might be able to get past the first half an hour.
If all else fails, there's probably a walkthrough.
Exactly. Yeah. Which again.
So before you came in, Amy and I were talking comics, and like Amy did a great interview with Two Geeks Talking, Kurt Sassel, where she was talking a lot about like people bringing in fanzines to sell and photocopied stuff, and that's kind of where I got my start in comics as well, is going through that very lo-fi, down to the copy shop, printing stuff up, stapling it yourself. So while I'm reading The Truth, all kinds of things are going through The Truth. For those who don't know, is a Discworld book about the introduction of the printing press. So it kind of revolutionizes the main city, Ankh Park. So this is setting off a lot of really interesting thoughts in my head, because when I was doing this was pre-internet, and we were posting letters. We weren't really.
You weren't using the clacks,
So
yeah. I hadn't thought of that aspect for you. Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
I sort of came up during probably the tail end of that kind of DIY, zines and stuff like that, when people around university and around the kind of various punk gigs and stuff I would have attended, you still would have got maybe the odd fanzine, but that very, very quickly died out sort of as I came of age, which is sad. But yeah, that kind of aspect of it it's exciting, and the world's coming back. We feel a bit more about analog stuff now, don't we?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a big fan of webcomics, but I've realized over the years that, websites don't stay up forever.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of desperate to get hold of printed versions of them.
Yeah. And that was always such a big deal. Like I was the same. I was huge into the kind of webcomic scene around, I guess, 2003, 2004, and wrote for a blog and stuff like that. But there was something really special about getting the print versions of a webcomic more so than just buying a comic off the shelf for some reason. Gosh, I wonder if I still have any. I've definitely got a few penny arcades.
95% of my comics journalism was on websites have gone down, like huge. I was very, very active comics journalist. It's all gone.
Well,
Yeah.
this is kind of the
It's all in
thing,
the
is
Internet
that
Archive.
you know, stuff on the internet is actually quite temporary, and if you want to, you know, keep it forever and be reading it in your old age, which I do, that's, you know, that's how I imagine my life in the old people's home. Then you know, you need to get print versions and hold on to them, and they'll survive the apocalypse, maybe.
Can't remember the name of the site there. Oh, Fleen.
One of the things I'm really loving about
Can't remember the name of the editor.
Oh,
no, go
sorry,
ahead.
what
Sorry,
was
I
that,
think there's a bit
PJ?
of a delay. I just said I think there's a bit of a delay, so I'll just
Might
be
be
quiet.
taken. I think there's a bit of a flame. Did you say, is that a webcomic?
No, it was a web comics news site.
Oh, right. And
I'm
it's
sure it's
now
long
defunct,
gone.
is it?
Oh, I imagine it's been defunct for at least 20 years, probably. You'll look it up.
I
You'll look it up.
powder for about years.
Oh, nice.
That's gone away.
Mm-hmm.
I've been really enjoying. People say the sort of the Discworld stuff from moving pictures, the teens were like really ratchets up. I've been finding the last bundle of books where it's from the 20s, the sort of industrial revolution stuff is really like it's going up a whole nother level. I feel I'm on the cusp of like a really, well, not on the cusp, in the fucking middle of the ocean of a really good time with the Discworld books. Amy, what's bearing in mind spoilery stuff? Because I'm only up to book 24. Like, what are your Discworld memories?
I was really fond of the Witches series, probably just because, you know, all female characters, and they're just well, you know, not stereotypes whatsoever.
Yeah, we're both big fans.
Forces to be reckoned with.
Yes, exactly. Formidable. Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Andy, as well. It's a bit of a sneak preview probably of what we'll talk about on the next episode, but I really feel like the truth is like is a turning point for my Discworld reading, or was a turning point for me as well. Just in terms of like, oh, this feels like modern Discworld. Like I sort of could see a bit of a dividing line here between like fantasy Discworld and what I consider to be like slightly more modern Discworld, and it's completely arbitrary. I couldn't tell you why I have that in my head. Maybe I'll remonstrate on that before we speak again. But yeah, I totally get where you're coming from.
What Amy said about the witches, I think there's three witches. There's three, four. The main two are Nanny Og, who's a partying, drinking, overly sociable woman, and Granny Weatherwax, who's a hard as nails, seriously wise, kind of lone wolf who shouldn't really be in a group, and everybody knows her, everybody's afraid of her, everybody comes to her for help. And Granny Weatherwax is one of my favorite characters in fiction. She's up there with Lynda Day of Press Gang, that singular sort of top spot on her. So yeah, I always enjoy a witch's book, and of course the guards books, which are always generally top
then you
tier
have
quality.
the young witch Magrat,
Mm-hmm.
who is a bit throws off tradition and likes to wear trousers.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
that's such a good. Indeed. So yeah, it's interesting you were saying about the guards having the
Was that a
guards playing
spoiler?
sort
Not
of
a spoiler. Pause to spoil.
Oh, yeah, no spoilers, no spoilers.
Oh, there's so much you could spoil in there.
Yeah. We've still got how many books left?
So there's 41. So it was 16. But there's also, I mean, people leave out of that count the short story collection.
Yeah, we
so
at least we've
quite a
covered
lot
one
of
of. Yeah. Yeah, we got a long ways to go, but there's
and
a
of
great
course, we have graphic
run.
novels.
Yeah, we touched a little bit on that, haven't we, Andy? We're going to come back maybe to it again. I might have one sitting here, actually.
I have a few.
We need to do the guards one. Oh. I don't know. Yeah. So this is gonna be lent to you soon, Andy. Hopefully. We don't know. Like it's backwards.
That looks gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a nice.
It's backwards. Yeah.
Nice print. Yeah, I'm just sitting reading this now. I'll stop.
So this is
Great.
my first live stream. I'm going to pimp everything on my channel, which includes my press gang readers' commentaries, which are short, but detailed, massively detailed video essays on the Stephen Moffat young adult series press gang from the 80s, late 80s, early 90s.
Early 90s.
I think so.
PJ and I are going to talk about it a bit. Amy, have you ever seen this? Have you familiarity with it?
Not a lot, no. But I know it's, kind of amateur journalism and it's school newspaper, yeah.
Yeah, it's school's newspaper in the first two series, and 3 to 5 they've taken it, leaving school and taking the paper with them, and it's a lot of what Moffat does best. There's a lot of issue level stuff that's actually secondary to story, making it much more effective. Amazing comic scripts and timing. There's a wonderful cast of people who would be massively famous later on. I think if I'm going to bring him into that in a bit. Tristan, would you? Oh, I haven't even given him the link.
That'd be a good start.
Pete, would you like to speak on?
I remember nothing of it. Unfortunately, it's a little bit before my time. I know I'm very, very aware of it because I've got you. I've got another good friend who's a big Stephen Moffat evangelist. So I've been hearing about it a lot for probably the last 20 years on and off. So yeah, we could maybe do I've never watched Press Gang as a little role reversal, perchance. But who knows?
I'm totally not. Just going into Facebook to come and join us with the power of audio if you're still up for that. You can school these people.
Furious clicking is occurring. I love this whole setup. Looks very professional. Something just popped up.
I can block it, but that's not what I want. Oh, I've shared his
I
message.
will step back and let you.
I'm not quite sure.
Let you bring somebody else in that case. I feel that the technology on my end is possibly a bit creaky. I'm getting a lot of lag, so I don't want to gum up the works any further if you're going to bring somebody else in. So all the best with the convention, Amy. Sounds like
Thank
it's going
you.
to be
You
a good
coming?
one. I wish I could. Yeah, he's he's got the well.
Come on.
Maybe
Come on.
if there's a humanities conference on around the same time, I might be able to talk my
Well, it's
department.
Oxford. There's probably one going on somewhere.
Yeah, there's always yeah. When actually is it?
16th to 17th of August.
Awesome. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, who knows? Hey, who knows? Okay, I'll leave you to it. It all sounds very exciting. Looking forward to getting stuck back into the Discworld, Andy. So all the best with your other endeavors, especially Caption. It sounds awesome. How do I leave this thing? Do you have to it's like now what happens? Do I just close the browser? Do you kick me out? Oh, leave. There's a leave button. Okay. Bye-bye.
Look forward to. I've no idea. I have no idea. Magic happens. Which sounds awful rude of me.
Well, it seems
Wasn't it?
he seems to have figured it out. Did you want me to hop off as well?
There he goes. You're welcome to stay. I think I'm gonna invite Tristan in.
Okay.
Oh, if I can figure out how to do that. And you're welcome to ask Tristan if he's read any Discworld. Tristan, are you in with us yet, or have I not pressed the correct button? Standing by technical. Let's see. Oh, yeah.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Something has happened. Hello, Tristan.
Streaming through. You need to turn off your virtual. You need to either switch to your camera or start OBS virtual camera.
Okay, I don't have a camera, so
all right. Okay,
I'm afraid you're going to have to imagine that I look like a circle with a weird sickle thing in it. Yeah, but you can hear me from the sound of it.
Yeah,
so
we can hear you. Yeah,
all good, all good.
Tristan,
yeah, hello. Nice to meet you both.
I should probably do a little bit of an introduction. Tristan Sargent, a year to the Nightmare Man Facebook group, who writes his wonderful. The group's about various 80s or I'm butchering. Tristan, tell us what the group's about, and then I'll
Nightmare with a K.
Nightmare just with an N, and it was originally about an obscure TV show written by Robert Holmes, or scripted by Robert Holmes in 1981-82, which only lasted for 4 weeks. So there's not a lot of stuff there. But the guy who founded the group made it about that and any other similar sort of nostalgic British TV show, and it just bloomed from there to anything that the group members liked, really, which tends to be horror, nostalgia, old TV.
Sapphire and Steel.
Absolutely, Sapphire and Steel. I mean, if it can come under the heading of Nightmare or Man from a Nightmare, or Nightmare with Men in it, it's which Sapphire and Steel absolutely can, can't it? So, but equally something like I guess an Inspector Calls, which is not at all unlike Sapphire and Steel in some ways. So even though it's obviously a very different era, but anyway, yeah. So that group, I write stuff on that. And that's my claim to infamy.
So Tristan is one of the, I think, main contributors to the Nightmare Man Facebook group, and writes these wonderful essay length but wonderfully considered, greatly articulate and insightful posts on all manner of UK SF and F cult television and radio. You've collected some of your listings of these into a book. You've got a YouTube channel yourself. where you showcase a lot of sort of, I guess, am I right in thinking sort of esoteric or sort of less found broadcasts?
Well, it was originally Ghost Stories for Christmas, but radio plays. It expanded a bit beyond that, but yeah, because of course Ghost Stories for Christmas on TV is a big thing, but there's plenty on radio as well. So that's what it began as.
I guess I was going to try and get a segue. And have you ventured near the Discworld stuff?
I have. Unfortunately, I haven't read any recently. So I remember and know the first 2, possibly 3 books really well. I do have radio series of 3 or 4 of them, and I used to know someone who was in a stage, in a amateur dramatics group, who I must have gone to see 4 or 5 different Terry Pratchett adaptations, all of which were enormous fun. So especially the
lucky
yeah.
fella.
Well, there was a guy who played Granny Weatherwax in I think it. I forget which one it was, but I asked him afterwards, why they decided to cast a young gentleman as Granny Weatherwax, and it was just that one of these things, limited pool of people, and he just seemed to fit the role, and he did. He was very, very good. But I guess Granny Weatherwax is probably one of the roles that most actors would like to have a crack at.
Yes, I'm sure. Yes, I would love to get and see a Discworld adaptation for the stage. It's blown my mind just how many of them there are, because every time we do an episode of the podcast, I go and gather as many book cover visuals as I can, and then when I run out, I will steal from stage adaptation posters, and there's just so many. So I'm constantly on the lookout to see if there's sort of one happening near me in Northern Ireland. It was actually when I started doing that I got to find out that Mark Burrows was visiting Belfast with his talk about Terry Pratchett and Discworld, and that's a really good show. If you find Mark Burrows is doing his presentation near you, that's really, I think it's called The Art of Pratchett. Really great show.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah, those first few books, I mean, Equal Rights, I love it, and I think it's very realist. The magic stuff is, although it's there, it's quite a backseat. The big bad is bad weather. It's a great book. Do you have any particular favorites, Tristan?
Well, I'm going to say Mort because it's the first one that I got, and so something that I think may not even have been relevant certainly to Terry Pratchett at the time so much, but was definitely relevant to me, was I was a Dungeons and Dragons kid. So I became aware of Terry Pratchett's books through White Dwarf magazine, where it was advertised. And of course, at the time, I suspect the publishers or some of the people in the publishing house may have thought that if there was a market for Terry Pratchett, it was going to be that sort of crowd. And
not wrong.
Yeah, because I mean, it exploded a few books later. What was around the time Sorcery was published, where suddenly you could buy them in Sainsbury's. But before that, it was, I don't want to say obscure because Corgi wasn't an obscure label, but anyway, I was interested because it was sold to me as Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy for Dungeons and Dragons, which is reductive, but not wholly inaccurate either, right? So certainly as someone who was really into Hitchhikers at the time, the sense of humor was comparable. Even like I know like prose and all sorts of other ways they're not the same, but except I do remember thinking the initial team up of Rincewind and Twoflower is a bit like Arthur and Ford, but that's Innocence and Experience put together. So clearly Terry Pratchett didn't need to get ideas from Douglas Adams, but
But if he did, is that a bad thing?
No, not at all. No, certainly wouldn't have been.
We all have our inspirations.
Yeah, but I think I forget the dates exactly, but I mean they're kind of roughly contemporaneous, I think. But well, I mean, either way, I mean. Other big difference, of course, Terry Pratchett wasn't afraid of writing, whereas Douglas Adams famously didn't really like doing that much of it. But anyway, yeah. So the context that I discovered Terry Pratchett was in the sort of late 80s, when it was being pushed as fantasy, as opposed to what it became, which was, yes, it's, you know, got fantastical elements, but very much mainstream humor. You know, and it was slightly weird because I was the kid at school reading Terry Pratchett books, and suddenly I knew people whose mums were reading Terry Pratchett. You know, it's not something I expected to happen. But yeah, so Mort, just because I hadn't, even despite the comparison with Hitchhiker, I hadn't read anything quite like it, and the speed with which it becomes a funny book and an imaginative. You know, and I was, even at the age of 12 or whatever it was, I recognized a lot of what he was parodying. So, yeah. So, an important step in lots of ways.
And Death is a great character.
That's probably more than anything else why Mort sticks out, I think. And it kind of feels to me like, in terms of popularity, that's the book where it started to really coalesce. Which is not to take anything away from the previous three, but mind you, it might have just been a momentum, you know.
And every time they kill a character off, and you're just like, oh, but they haven't had a scene with Death yet. So,
yes, yeah. I mean, it's certainly true. I can remember every time I picked a Terry Pratchett book up, I would flick through looking for the heavy capitals to look for a scene with Death, right? So I going back to The Colour of Magic, I almost found it slightly disappointing that the Death, I mean, he's in it, but he's obviously he hadn't been developed to become the character, you know, his fondness for cats and everything that he subsequently became. So
yeah, and he doesn't even turn up for Rincewind. It's Scrofula.
Oh, that's right. Yes, at the very end. Yeah. Mind you, see, I definitely wasn't aware of Ingmar Bergman and is it the Seventh Seal or the Sixth Seal? I can never remember. Anyway, the
Seventh Seal.
Seventh, with Ming playing chess with Death. Well, I was totally unaware of that. So
it's surreal.
Yeah, but obviously there's a little bit of that going on. And I was pedantic enough to be really irritated when Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey came out, and people said, "Oh, well, they're just stealing that from Terry Pratchett." And William Sadler playing Death, and I was like, no, he's got a Scandinavian accent. That's the Seventh Seal. But yeah, as I say, junior pedant.
Mind you, I have to say, it is one of those things where you go, what inspired what? There's quite a few things where I'll just claim this began with Star Trek because I love Star Trek, and then I watched The Twilight Zone, and I'm like, oh,
absolutely.
I'm a bit embarrassed now.
Because there's a thing that's been bugging me for ages. Do you know Angel particularly well?
Yes.
Okay, so do you remember at the end of series 4 when Jasmine turns up and they go to this world where Jasmine has just come from? Right. Now, to me, that's a hell of a lot like episode 3 of Doctor Who and the Horns of Nunnon. But I'm hesitant to assume that that's where it started because I'm assuming that there's probably an earlier story that the guy who wrote Horns of Nymon may have been familiar with. It's just that when I saw it, I was like, this ripped off the Horns of Nymon, and then I sort of caught myself. It's like, maybe the idea goes back further.
It may have been inspired by.
Well, no, absolutely.
It may have been inspired by something else. I mean, pretty obviously the Minotaurs.
Well, no, sure, but I mean the locust aspects of them, sort of going to the. But I mean, it is something that I'm I am really interested in is the way that stories interlock and or the
and there's
creativity
been
of
some where there's such a love letter that they even like drop little references to their their inspiration, like to be
for
like,
sure.
yeah, we were inspired by this, and we're acknowledging it.
Yeah, I mean, because how many times has the Doctor Who done the thing from another world? It's at least 2 as a story, and as an explanation for Ice Warriors, there's a third one, I think. But then there's Who Goes There wasn't the first time that story had been, or that plot device had been used, at any rate. But yeah, and Doctor Who is, quite appropriately, not at all ashamed of doing that. I think it's one of the great things about it. It's one of the things I love. And I have a completely unprovable suspicion that Terry Nation came up with his story about where the word Daleks came from because he just twisted the word Morlocks until it sounded right to him. And I was reinforced in that when I discovered that there's a story about L. Frank Baum getting the name Oz for The Wizard of Oz from, I don't know if it was a couple of filing cabinets, O and Z, or something like that. But it's so similar to Terry Nation's story about the volumes of the encyclopedia with DAL to LEK that I just kind of feel like, but cannot prove that's what he was channeling. But
I've got there's no questions in the chat unless you're watching on Facebook, in which case you probably should get over to YouTube so I can see the chat, or I'll try. But I've got a question for both you, knotting a few things together. What Doctor Who episode do you think most has inspired or bungle that middle bit? Discworld. Which Doctor Who episode is most Discworldy?
That's a tricky one.
Two disparate things together.
Yeah, well, the Douglas Adams link is very obvious, but
well, no. So I'm going through it in my head, right? Because to be clear, you're not asking if I think that there was a Doctor Who story specifically inspired by Discworld, or are you sort of saying, is there something that feels like it has the same spirit as Discworld?
So same spirit. Right. The best I could come up with was After You.
Sorry, which one?
Saying After You, but okay, I'll jump the queue.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said After Youth, and I was like, oh God, is there a Doctor Who story called After Youth that I've completely failed?
It struck me that Happiness Patrol has elements of the sort of lunatic, farcical, loud characterness of the disc.
Are we allowed to talk about Happiness Patrol?
Why not? Is this something you have trauma you have to get over, Amy?
Oh my God, horror Bertie Bandit! No.
We just want to bring you and Happiness Patrol together and be fine.
Can never look at another licorice all sort. I'm sorry.
I'm really sorry, right? I'm going to have to say I quite like that design for the Candyman. It's me. I know it's not what it's supposed to have been, and I know that he's universally hated. And at the time, I was that age where, what Doctor Who was like, impacted my day at school the next day, because there would be people who'd come up to me specifically to tell me how rubbish they thought Doctor Who was, because they knew I liked it, right? And there was this...
still happens.
Yeah, of course. It's and I don't imagine I was the only kid in the country experiencing that, right? But there was this brief period around the time of Sylvester McCoy's second series where actually kids came up and said, no, the Dalek one's really good. People wanted to talk about it. And then the Happiness Patrol, and everybody was going on about Bertie Bassett, or at least they were going on at me about Bertie Bassett. And I can see it was playing into the hands of certain expectations of Doctor Who at the time. But I think the guy in the costume does quite a good job. I find some of his line deliveries quite funny. I've not caught up with the Big Finish version of the character, which I understand was more how it was intended. But I'm going to take a moment to think a little bit more about your Terry Pratchett Doctor Who question, because I'm sure I can come up with a more interesting answer than I have so
I'd
far.
probably have to go for something out the Matt Smith era because it's very magical.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good track. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It definitely goes quite magic.
So right from the outset, the 11th hour would seem to have all the ingredients that a good Pratchett Discworld would have.
Mm-hmm.
And goes in as many, the 11th hour is quite packed with ideas, goes in a lot of different directions, but you still get that through line of the prisoner's hero.
Yeah.
It was very Pratchettian villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, good one maybe.
I was just thinking, because there's the thing in Light Fantastic about dragons that require you to believe in them. Now, is there a Doctor Who monster along those lines? Yes, there is. There's not just the perception issue with angels, but the dream crabs, where they can only come and get you if you're thinking about them. Which isn't okay. I'm not saying that episode feels like, except it's got Santa Claus, Father Christmas in it, and that is kind of Terry Pratchett-y, if anything is. A character, not only a character from folklore turning up, but actually discussing it. And the thing I love about that episode is the little moments where they point out that, yeah, it might be daft to have Father Christmas turning up in a science fiction story, but he's no dafter than the Doctor. So when I forget the characters, Shona asks the elves, how do you get all the presents in the sleigh? And they just say, well, it's bigger on the inside. Right? It's drawing attention to the fact that really it is no more absurd than Clara having a best friend who's a time traveler with flies around in a box. And I love that. So that would be my vote. I think aspects of that one are quite Pratchett-y.
I like the idea that it wasn't Coca-Cola that invented Santa, it was Terry Pratchett. That really appeals to me.
Well, see, I remember hearing, have you ever heard of a program called the Museum of Curiosity?
Yeah. Watched it.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, because it's the radio show is like a sister program to QI.
Ooh.
And yeah, so it's the sort of thing that should be on TV but isn't. But it's been running for 15 years, I think, and it's hosted by John Lloyd, who co-creator of QI. And the idea is every week you have 3 people turn up and they bring something along, or an idea or a thing, to go in the Museum of Curiosity, and they explain why it should be in there. So one person brought along the Battle of Waterloo, and one person brought along the most sophisticated pre-digital calculator ever made. I think it looked like a hand grenade and was called a Curter, I think. So these stories about extraordinary, weird little things. And one of them brought Father Christmas along. And his argument was, well, he gave a little lesson about Father Christmas versus Santa Claus, and the fact that Father Christmas is dying out because the Americanized Christian St. Nicholas is sort of edging out the more folkloric, more pagan figure that Father Christmas was. And right, I'm not qualified to discuss that at length, but that idea struck me as a really interesting one. and especially because I think in my life it was always Father Christmas until I was sort of late teen, and then suddenly I noticed Santa Claus being used more and more often.
I think in Narnia it's Father Christmas, isn't it?
Absolutely, and then even in the film, the last film that he did of Lion the Witch, he's not. I mean, of course, he's not dressed in the red, but he looks more like a pagan figure, even if Clive probably didn't want it to be. But yeah, so I find that sort of war between the two interesting. And I used to know a Russian lady who explained to me they had something similar called Father Frost in Russia, who I think dresses in blue, but in all other respects is Father Christmas. Now, I don't know whether that's the same folklore at the other end of the continent or whether it's completely independent. Well, anyway, you get the picture. Sorry, I've blathered.
Luke in chat says, I just call him Jeff.
Yes, quite right. Did we ever find out if it was the same Jeff and if that was the job that he was going to ask? I suppose probably not, actually. Well, no, because I'm not going to muse about that in front of strangers. Sorry.
So we're doing really well. We're now into like a quarter of the way into the second hour. So that's fantastic. Thank you everyone for showing up. Daily Blase, thank you so much, Darren, for showing up. Daily Blase is one of my favorite UK political YouTubers who represents stuff from Commons Select Committees, from PMQs, other interviews that he's found really interesting, and runs a commentary on them that's very friendly, warm, and funny, and absolutely today ran a piece on Robert Jenrick being caught out by an interviewer, which I think deserves to go viral. Absolutely got his head mopping the floor. Really, really good to see. Yeah.
Yes, I'd agree about the. I'm not going to mention that person's name, but yeah, I like Daily Blase's videos. They're Honest Bob. He looks like a corrupt surgeon in a late 2000s BBC drama. I think I'm thinking of a very specific one as well. It's like I can't look at him without thinking of that. But anyway, yeah, I second your recommendation of the Daily Blase. I think he's great.
Yeah, very lucky to have our man as a guest here. I've often thought with the channel I would love to do a political show. Maybe a comedy stuff or something to do with media, because I'm very much a media student. I like to find out who is writing something and where they're actually coming from, as opposed to what they say on the page or on the screen, that they're actually coming from. I think there's some really interesting discrepancies, and as the news media are largely part of the responsibility for writing our reality, I think they need to be given much more scrutiny than what we do. So anyway, and I would love to bring Daily Blase on as like a guest, or to do a little insert for a couple of minutes. I'm kind of thinking I would love to do something very much like Charlie Brooker's old Wipe series. That's, as much as I've been ripping off Charlie Brooker's style for my Doctor Who videos, I plan to rip off his Wipe style for anything political I do. But I've got so many sort of pressures on me regarding work and income, and the YouTube monetization levels are just so extraordinarily high that I have to really put a bit of thought in to how much I want to commit to the platform going ahead. I'm still very much in love with doing what I do, but just stuff to think about. So there'll be gerbil videos while that comes, and I'm really committed to doing the Press Gang Readers Commentary series, because I think there's been a number of other people who've done Press Gang podcast, Press Gang blogs, and right, we're going to do it episode by episode, they say, and they get to the end of series 2. And for some reason, I can't get beyond that. And series 3 is just utter gold. It's A+++. But nobody. So I'm not going to. I'm going right through. Whatever happens. So Amy hasn't seen it. I don't know if Luke in chat has seen it.
When I was a kid, I probably saw a few episodes, but I can't remember. I can just remember the concept, and that's all.
So I made two symposium length podcasts a couple of years back on Press Gang, and Tristan stopped to give a few short reviews of various episodes. So Tristan, could you pitch Press Gang to people here who need it? They do.
Okay. I actually think described as like what it's about would be the whole junior newspaper thing would almost be to miss what it's really about, because it's a really funny show, and in spite of that, it manages to deal with some really sometimes dark, sometimes very serious aspects of life, but also growing up in a usually responsible way, but also in a way that I felt when I was growing up seemed to ring true. And I look at it now and I think it's really solid. And there was a time when I probably would have said it was the best TV show for young audiences, certainly of its era. Maybe since then. The problem is it's also tied in with childhood nostalgia and the fact that I was in love with Julia Sawalha and so on and so forth. Right? Not unique in that by any means, but
you said I was in love. I think you're still in love.
Does anyone really ever fall out of love if it's real? No, the thing is that if I really had a crush on a character, really, it would have been the character whose face we never saw. Now, what was she? I can't even remember her name, but it was the second character played by Abigail Doherty in series 2. Doesn't make it out alive either. But that's someone who's really into radio plays. It's not surprising I had a crush on someone's voice.
She's incredible. Well, Susie Norton is a character she plays. Appearance, but we don't have a different one. And thank you, Daly. That would be amazing. We'll certainly have a chat about that when it looks to come up. I would love to have yourself in, maybe Davy McGuinness, a few other of our mutuals, Max. Just requires me to put a bit of thought into how to manage it. But yeah, back to the Press Gang. I mean, I grew up in a household where MASH was on, and we got the version that had no canon. Yes. And if you think about MASH and the pacing, the fast line deliveries, I mean, that's all over Press Gang. And, if you know Moffat's work from Doctor Who and Sherlock, you'll see that same sort of, when Moffat's being very funny, that same sort of fast-paced, kind of organic writing style. And it's got all the Moffatisms as well. It's got great twists in the stories. There's at least one episode that has a scene that kind of is comparative with the scene in Breaking Bad where they're locked in a caravan and Hank is outside, and it's so near the crunch time, it looks like our leads are so screwed over.
Yes.
We don't know how they're going to get out of it. but a twist presents itself, a completely realistic twist in terms of story logic. And this is something Moffat does incredibly well. I remember, like, I was a writer when I was quite young, quite an active writer. And I had something back then that I don't have now in youth, and that was the ability just to keep going, not to question yourself, not to edit yourself, and just sort of let
The
it go.
ability to stay awake.
The ability to stay awake is another very important one. I can't do that nowadays. I sort of I stop and I look at something, I procrastinate, and I score it out and I'll go back over it, and I'll hit my microphone and probably reverberate and screw everything up. Whereas if I just had been young and full of fun, then yeah. And Press Gang, yes, it's very much in that place. There's a real energy and mercurial freshness to it that holds up really well.
And I think some of the inventive ways of telling stories. I'm not suggesting it's particularly radical or anything, but for example, the episode in, is it series 1 where they talk about there's no Wednesday? I can't remember exactly, but
Monday, Tuesday
yes,
is cancelled.
Yes. So the ways in which they tell a story around a gap, and then they fill the gap in towards the end, or even because I think I talked about this for your podcast, but the episode which deals with child abuse, and it feels to me genuinely like the writer was like, I don't feel that I can confront this head on, so he makes it about somebody else's inability to confront this issue head on, which apart from sort of feeling true, it also felt kind of sincere, and in a way, by putting it at a remove, I'm sure it made it easier for a younger audience to address. But
yeah, this is one that's won a BAFTA and nomination for other awards, and it does get around that sort of issue thing. Like an issue thing in a narrative about a newspaper is a very justifiable story. You get away with doing a lot, but as Tristan says, it's integrated firmly into one of the characters' stories in a way that makes it very real, makes it meta, but also integral at the same time. It's really hard to describe, but it's a real success in storytelling and education, and kind of reaching an audience beyond education, having a conversation.
Yes, I think it was a show that tended to be very good at, I'm going to say, speaking uncomfortable truths, because so I think a really big example was the love affair between Spike and Lynda, because certainly up to the end of series 2, it addresses the fact that Lynda is aware that she's at an age and a point in her life when she's a bit young to be swearing love eternal to somebody, and she's got things that she wants to do that may not allow for that, and she has a career opening up in front of her, and it doesn't, I don't think it ever gives a definite answer. It never ties a bow around it. It always says these are complications, and life continues to be complicated, and you don't get a simple answer for the complicated things, but you have to find a way through. But it doesn't do it in a way that's terrifying. I don't ever remember thinking that Press Gang was telling you that life was going to suck, even when it was talking about times when life does suck.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess it does. If only I'd listened. As you can tell from Tristan, it's a show that inspires an awful lot of passion. And as I mentioned Amy earlier when we were talking about Granny Weatherwax, Lynda Day is right up there as one of my favorite characters in fiction. She is very similar to me, or feels like a character that I know very well, and in ways that I'm not proud of. I mean, she's a remarkable illustration of a young person struggling with a number of mental health issues, depression, mood swings, control issues, also a massive workaholic, to the point of it being a danger and an impediment to herself. But also the flip side is, she kind of lives for her work. It keeps her going. And that for people who were about when Breast Gang was being aired first time around or second time, the character acted very much as an inspiration to them to pursue careers in journalism or writing. Wonderful, multifaceted character, and the exploration of her relationship with Dexter Fletcher's Spike is one that goes through that will they, won't they, to they do, and out the other side in a very, the breakup in a very sort of logical, rational kind of way without any contrivance. And quite a bit of a, spoilers for, I know Luke's in chat and he hasn't seen it that far, but yeah, wow, what a show.
If I can make my observation will now sound trivial and petty by comparison to yours, which was quite deep and human. At the time I was at my most into Press Gang, I was also really into Blake 7. And I always thought that Lynda Day was a bit like Avon, right? And I don't mean in the sense of being a murderer. I mean in the sense of being able to make the hard decisions, right? And it didn't necessarily mean that she didn't care. Just because she didn't show that she cared didn't mean that she didn't care. It's a stretch, but they were very much two shows that were big parts of my life when I was at that point in my adolescence.
Hold on, it's all beginning to fall into place now, Tristan. So, Yvonne, Lynda, Villa, Colin, does that mean Spike as Blake?
I suppose it does. I hadn't given it that much thought, but perhaps
the Colin Villa thing definitely works with him.
But then of course you have to look at the incidents of curly-haired female protagonists in Stephen Moffat's work. Something about the frizzy hair. Are you familiar with? Obviously, I'm sure you've seen Coupling. Did you see the show he did before Coupling? Joking Apart.
I have not. No, I plan to work through Joking Apart and Chalk, and do something on them. Probably towards the end of my Press Gang coverage, which will be about 3 years' time.
Joking Apart is definitely worth it. It's quite, I wouldn't say obscure, but the BBC didn't want to release it on DVD, and this is literally what happened. A fan of the show wrote to the BBC and said, well, if you won't release it, can I? And he had to learn how to produce and release a DVD. So for a short period of time, the series 1 and 2 of Joking Apart and subsequently Chalk were released by this company created by a fan of the show. The pilot episode of Joking Apart is I don't find it too much fun because it's caught up in the seriousness of the scenario of the breakup. But the episodes that follow it, at its best, I find it funnier than Coupling. It's the pure farce that's going on in some of the episodes is really, 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 really good. And there was probably some connection with Press Gang that I was going to make, and it's completely fled my mind. These things happen.
Seems to. Yep.
Hang on, what was I talking about?
It happens to me all the time.
could you fill in for a moment while I use Lou? And maybe, although I am going to miss, here's a prompt. Amy talking about Blake 7. I'm gonna hurry right back.
Well, embarrassingly, I also have to go to the loo. So, Amy, I'm sorry. I'll be as quick as I can.
We'll be right back.
Okay. Wow, what secrets can I reveal to you now about our our host? No, that would be wrong. Chat, what do you want to talk about? Is there anybody out there? Okay, Simon prefers Red Dwarf to Blake 7. I mean, they are quite different. One of them is a comedy. The other one, I suppose, some comedy in it, but very dark.
I think there's an argument to be made for either show moving a bit towards one another's orbit. Red Dwarf got a bit too silly for me as it went on. I preferred the earlier stuff that had a realist basis, whereas Blake 7, particularly series 3 and 4, could probably have used a bit more jokes. Intentional jokes, I'm talking about.
Well, they sort of went, we don't want to be Doctor Who and have silly monsters, and then they started putting silly monsters in, and they're just like, yeah, we're having fun now. Let's just stick with it.
Oh yes, Luke asks about Dark Season or Century Falls. I noticed he'd been watching those. I am not. I remember seeing The Second Coming not long after it came out. Quite enjoying that. But I'm very intrigued about those two series. Amy, Dark Season, Century Falls.
No idea.
I saw both of them at the time. Dark Season, when it came out, I thought was absolutely fantastic. I don't think that anymore, but because it came out when there was no Doctor Who, for example, and it has this thing that even when Russell T Davies writes something that I don't necessarily appreciate, it usually has a driving enthusiasm to it and a vigor, and even I think probably Dark Season looks today like it's a little almost over ambitious, but that's still ambitious, and that's a really good thing, particularly then. And it's oddly structured. It's a series of 6 episodes, but it's really 2-3 episode stories with a running cast and a running villain.
What's the pitch line on it? What's the setup?
A school where you have 2 older kids and a younger kid who is Doctor Who, but don't tell anyone. And she's the mysterious, older than her years, knows more than she ought to, etc., character. And the first 3 episodes, you have stop me if you've heard this one. A businessman who wants to give everyone in the school a free computer. And it's got similarities to the Sarah Jane episode in series 2 of Doctor Who. Similarities, they're not the same story. It also, I think, has similarities to one of the Demon Headmaster books. I can't recall exactly, but that the businessman in question is a man called Mr. Eldritch, who has bleached blonde hair and always wears sunglasses. And the second story involves, I'm using Russell T Davies' description here. I think it's an order of lesbian Nazi nuns led by Jacqueline Pierce, and they want to dig up the apocalypse inducing.
Okay, that sounds worth it.
Yeah. I mean, it's eccentric, and it's got a giant supercomputer voiced by Marsha Fitzalan underneath the school hall that can bring about World War III. And you see what I mean about it being perhaps overambitious, but it was delivered with conviction, and one of the lead actresses is Kate Winslet. There's also a line which I suppose almost a bit press gangy, where someone finds they'd fallen down a ventilation shaft and actually says, "Great, I've fallen down a ventilation shaft. Now I'm a cliche." And Century Falls, by comparison, is, I think it turned up 2 or 3 years later. The funny thing about that one is that it was 92, 93, I think it came out, and it was looked at now. It looks like it's coming at the very end of this era of spooky children's TV with Children of Stones type stuff, really sinister atmosphere. Right, exactly. But the funny thing is, at the time, Century Falls, I remember TV Zone magazine ran a review saying, "Oh, this is just reheated nostalgia for Children of the Stones." So even by then, it was kind of at the time it was seen as sort of being overly nostalgic, and I don't know that it's much more serious, I think much better filmed than it's much more successful than Dark Season, and it's about you've got a brother and sister who are twins and they're psychic, and a village where children haven't been born in decades, and something terrible happened in the past, which, on the point about familiar ideas, I'm pretty sure that the first Silent Hill film has a very, very similar idea at the heart of it, which again, it makes me wonder if it's appeared in anything earlier than that. But anyway, sorry, I've rambled. But it's a Century Falls. I really like. I'm not so fond of Dark Season now, but it was an important show at the time. And when they did the first series of The Demon Headmaster, it looked to me, my first glance, like it was another series of Dark Season. There's some of that sort of atmosphere to it.
I might give that a go too. Luke in chat there is suggesting that some of the aspects of that Russell has been trying to integrate into Doctor Who regarding the Pantheon, which certainly interests me, because I've liked that element of the new Doctor Who stuff. It hasn't really always convinced me, because I mean, I come from reading comic books and looking at what Marvel and DC do with traditional ideas of the gods. Seem to be doing it much better, and Russell maybe should have taken a leaf from that book in terms of integrating these big sort of beings. But yeah, I'm interested. Tristan, have you seen much of the new series of Who?
Yes, I've seen all of it. Would you like to ask me a specific question, so I don't ramble too much?
So I did promise we'd go in with spoilers on the last weekend thing, but there's a few people here, I think, who haven't seen it. So we'll just go gently on the last episode. Well, what has been your sort of takeaway on it? Look, I've got a sheet of paper in front of me, and I obviously have a clear intention. What has been your sort of overall impression of it? Has it been a like, dislike? Have you felt in the middle on some stuff, and the various sort of narrative choices being made?
Well, right. So I think Amy said earlier something about Doctor Who always having been silly, right? So, and that's one of the many things it's been, because it's also been deadly serious and the rest of it. And
usually the Doctor has to be, the actor has to be someone who can do, both sides, the very
Yes.
serious and the absolutely goofy.
Yeah, and obviously classic example being Tom Baker, who could do both with iron conviction, right? Well, I guess what I'm getting to is that I could find things that I didn't like about this series, but I've reached a point in my life where I can be negative, but I don't like to be just negative without lots of qualification. Because the things I don't like, there will be people who did enjoy it, and I don't like pissing on people's bonfires. It's I used to love it, right? It used to be for me. It felt like like an early 2000s post Charlie Brooker thing that people said, because Charlie Brooker was very, very good at being absolutely excoriating about something, and there is a joy in being excoriating, but I felt like for some people, definitely including me, it got a bit too much like having fun for the sake of it. So this current series of Doctor Who, I'm not fond of what they did with some of the returning characters. Just like last year, I didn't like the new version of Sutekh because. Sorry, Amy, were you going to...
Is talking about Sutekh spoilers, or can we talk about Sutekh?
Is that an anagram for something?
I mean, I can shut my mouth about it if that's appropriate, or is this an in-joke?
No, I think Amy was just having a laugh.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I feel like somebody needs to do a cartoon like The Adventures of Sutekh just riding on the TARDIS for all that time and what he's doing during the Doctor's adventures.
I sense you were similarly skeptical.
It'll be or they could do a spin-off series, but I feel it would have to be a cartoon.
Yeah. So there's also there's a big Finnish plot line where they discover that there's an extra companion in the TARDIS and has been ever since 1966, but she's invisible because she's got a disease. And
that would be a good connection. You could have both.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Perhaps they had all sorts of chats.
Yeah.
It's Susan. She got lost she got locked in the toilet. She's been stuck in the
Well, so using Sutekh as just as an example, right? To me, using your comics comparison, he's Magneto. He's a hugely powerful psychic who doesn't like people, doesn't like crowds. He's not a god. And yeah, the thing about him clinging onto the outside of the TARDIS, making him a god. I don't see that was necessary. There are lots of characters in Doctor Who mythology who are much more godlike to start off with, or you could have come up with a new one. It is an example of going for the continuity reference rather than the story, I think. And I like Sutekh. I'm very fond of Sutekh. I enjoyed the audio series produced by Magic Bullet all about Sutekh, right? And I like the actor's voice. I think I was all for him.
We like his voice, yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for him coming. And I have made bad jokes about Neil before Sutekh, right? Usually... Andy, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. So
I think sometimes Doctor Who does really big retcons that you're just like, wait, how does that work?
So you raise a perfectly good point, which is they're all the retcons that I've swallowed in the past and I'm absolutely fine with. So when I object to something now, I do find I call myself a hypocrite, basically. It's like, I think probably what it comes down to is, does the story work? Or can you just ignore the inconsistency and carry on? Because after all, plenty of inconsistencies, lots and lots and lots of...
Timey-wimey.
Yeah, and the point is to have fun. So, so fundamentally, did I have fun with the new series? Yeah, mostly I did. I didn't quite manage to have fun with the last episode, because, to coin a phrase, to me it was a big bunch of stuff. But I did like the idea of there is a spoiler issue here, though, isn't there, with the episode that recent? So yeah. But I like Lux, and I liked. I really liked the Well, the sort of sequel to Midnight.
Right. I have an idea. Let's play a wee game. Let's go through episode by episode, and we each give like a really quick sort of response, no more than 20 seconds. All right. So let's see. I can see on my screen myself on one side, then Amy, then Tristan. So we'll go in that order. Let's start with Christmas. Let's start with Joy to the World. Okay. Lots of fun, really good straight up politics, dinosaurs, a bit silly and a bit imaginative. I really enjoyed that one.
Really liked the I think it's almost like the concept was really good, but they didn't spend enough time with it. But that might be, just my feeling generally is like, spend more time with this concept.
I really liked it. Especially the idea of the episode suddenly having a sojourn for a year with Anita. It's not 10 out of 10 for me, but I had fun with it, and I enjoyed watching it on Christmas Day. So.
You see, I wanted more with the Time Hotel, and
yes, I think you're right. I think the
Steph Diwali as Anita was fantastic, very watchable in that one.
Yeah, I think the conclusion of the bomb plotline, it didn't satisfy me, but hey, whatever.
This is a Vectron high security briefcase.
Absolutely, yes.
Three press guy joke for those amongst us. The Robot Revolution. I thought it was okay. It was one of those lesser companion introductory things, probably with Partners in Crime. It didn't really. I liked it well enough, but I didn't love it. I didn't dislike it either. It had some good stuff and some bad stuff, but it didn't all knock together satisfactorily for me.
Loved it. Polish. It's probably all I need.
Big, bright and colourful, a bit like a cartoon. I like that. Didn't love it, but as an aside, people will have complained about the alleged politics, etc. They haven't read the 1993 comic Evening's Empire, which I suspect Russell T. Davies has, which was saying the same thing much more strongly 30 years ago, before woke existed, whatever.
Amy's reference to Polish did remind me that little robot was actually the Lynx, the little Roomba. I really like that element. It's a lovely touch. Lux. So another episode 2, but like big screen, epic finale vibes. Didn't all knock together as satisfactorily as, say, The Devil's Cord, but it looked absolutely stunning. And animation, the 1950s set. I guess it wasn't I was expecting a straight animation, but it took the whole meta dive into sort of like various sort of between screen universes. And I quite liked it. Yeah, I really liked it.
I really liked it. And did I like it more than The Devil's Cord? You see, I kind of really like both of them. Call back to classic animation, fantastic. The bit where he becomes sort of real and utterly hideous, and the kind of fourth wall breaking meta adventures. Very creative.
Yes, I liked it for most of the same reasons. I think this is the thing. I'm saying that I liked but didn't love the episode so far, and I think we'll see if that continues to be the case.
Also, we're still here.
Sorry, I've gone silent because I feel like I've missed an in joke.
The audience.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I can remember stuff from 2001. I can't remember stuff from 3 weeks ago. I'm getting old. Yes. Quite right.
Sorry, did you say what you felt about Lux, Tristan, or was I just?
Oh, sorry.
speaking?
I really enjoyed it, and it's much the same reasons. I love the look of it, the color of it. I liked Alan Cumming, his vocal performance, and I'm not an what's the word? I'm not an expert on 50s fashions, but I thought the costumes were very good.
Oh, yeah, beautiful. Okay, The Well, which might have been a sequel to something. I'm sure nobody has spoiled it for you on the internet because they're much too polite on the internet to do that. Yeah, I really liked it. I really liked the inclusion of a signing character, which we've had before, but now as a much bigger part of the story. I liked that the returning monster wasn't a replica of the one we'd seen before, but there were enough similarities to read into it. I liked how it was lit. I liked the scenery. I loved the tension, the pacing. It kind of fell apart for me in kind of the last big scene. But up until that point, everything else was just really fantastic. One of the season's better showings.
Yep, I'm with you there. I think I still prefer Midnight, but it's very very strong. But yeah, the last scene, I was just like, you just went against this episode's internal logic. But it was probably just supposed to represent paranoia. It doesn't necessarily have to be read as actually. So it's probably just paranoia. If they've decided that it's not, though, then it sort of kind of makes the whole episode not make sense.
I take it you're referring to the possibility that the entities got to the spaceship. Yeah, that irritated me slightly because it's a horror movie cliche, and it's a cliche of a cliche. But that's the only thing I didn't like. I really liked I forget the character's name, but the lady with the gun who was a very good shot. Because the one thing that I still don't have an issue with Midnight is that it all comes down to a character sacrificing themselves. And I didn't feel that it had been explained why I didn't believe this person was going to kill themselves to save other people. I didn't feel it had been built up sufficiently. Whereas I did feel that the woman who saves the day in The Well, I had a better sense of her as a character and her motivation for doing so. And I like the fact that it had some of the spirit of Midnight without just being a copy of Midnight. The fact that this time it was different, and the possibility that this entity just likes playing with people. It's that evil. It just likes, and I like the reveal of it being the planet Midnight. I thought that was done very well in a way that.
Seeing you brought it up, the I don't know if this is a word, but heroic sizing of suicide was something Davies did in Wild Blue Yonder as well, and I found it pretty distasteful there as much so here, just a really sort of awkwardly stupid kind of choice.
Yes,
it felt in The Well. It felt particularly romanticized when it was paired with Murray Gold's music. Yeah, didn't care much for that choice at all.
No, I see what you mean. Certainly romanticized, and it's a quick way out of a difficult narrative situation.
What's next? Lucky Day. Yeah. So I really like that. I didn't realize it was Dr. Light until about halfway through, because Millie Gibson just carries it so beautifully, so phenomenally, and the focus is on the twists. I mean, looking at the Conrad story on paper, from one level, it looks like it might have been a very preachy, sort of on the nose political thing, but it is unpacked so beautifully in the pacing. I think that was Pete McTeague wrote that one. Really, really well done. I really enjoyed it. Ncuti's definitive speech at the end, one of his great moments. And I think that he's only in it for like 3 minutes, or well, there's 2 minutes at the start and 3 at the end, but those 3 at the end are, it's like his presence is all over the Amy.
Really big issue episode of, as you say, they're definitely being outwardly political, and it's one of the things that makes me respect Doctor Who, and also I think why it's still successful after it's been going for how long has it been going? Forever. It keeps exploring new stuff. I was it's obviously sort of like fake news and that sort of thing, and but also you have to wonder with the character of Conrad how much he's eaten his own hype, because he's sort of like, oh, I think he really believes his own own stuff here.
Sort of portrait of narcissism. I can't recall the actor's name. I know that I'd forgotten, but he was
Jonah Howard King.
Yes, that sounds right. And I had seen him in a series called The World on Fire, a World War II drama, where he's more or less the lead character, and I'm really impressed because he's so repulsive in that episode of Doctor Who, despite having enough of an innocent quality that he's not immediately repulsive. He's actually seems likable, and it's interesting because I can appreciate what the actor did, even if a lot of the time I couldn't bear to look at him after a certain point.
But that's that shows how good he was. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
And in a lot of ways how real his unpleasantness felt.
The sort of the reveal and everything from that moment and what Ruby had to go through was like utterly revolting, and all too real. We all have read of or know of somebody that suffered like huge deceptions like that. It really sort of, it really got me inside. It really sort of punched the stomach. The story in the engine. I'm not gonna hog the mic because I remember one of my first thoughts was this is as good as Vincent and the Doctor. And I didn't say, no, actually, this is better than Vincent and the Doctor. That is up there. And as well, it also feels weirdly sort of transparent. Like, okay, yes, it's a work of genius, but it lays out how you too could make a work of genius. It is entirely, it kind of says it's entirely plausible you can make a story as great as this, and this is how it's done. Over to you, Nate.
I loved it. Not more than Vincent and the Doctor, but then I'm really strongly connected to Van Gogh in terms of just really admire that artist, and also relate on the whole mental health stuff and all that. I really enjoyed the story in the engine, and the first watch through, I was just really confused. The second watch through, I was like, ooh. I think I think there's so much you could get out of it. There's so much in it that you could just watch it over and over and just keep getting new things out of it. And I love the story engine in the heart that was sort of like a brain, but it's a tree in its design. I thought that was some beautiful, just beautiful design work there.
I'm going to single out one moment in a way that's quite uncharacteristic, because I don't watch Doctor Who for the visuals, but there is the moment when they look outside and see the. It's the first time in Doctor Who I think I've ever sort of thought, good Lord, the quality of the imagination of the image that I was being shown, with the engine sort of the spider's legs and the it was. Oh, and all of that connected to a story set in one room. It's a fascinating episode.
I was just going to add I can't think of her name, but if you go and watch my dumpster floor video on it, or do a bit of research on the animator on Story in the Engine, it's well worth checking out her website and having a look around for other pieces of the level of style and beauty that on her. I think it's Augusto. I'll have a look at that. I'll Google for that in a minute. What came next then? Song contest. Okay.
Oh, Andy's frozen.
I hope that's not his opinion.
It's too much for this world.
I'll be back in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Amy, you said that you were related to Barry Letts. Is that particularly distant, or?
Yeah. Family splits,
it's still I once met a lady called Earp, and I said, any relation to Wyatt? And she said, yeah. It does happen after all.
Mm-hmm.
But, Andy.
Yay, you're back.
Am I back this time? Oh, great. Okay. I just remember sort of bringing up Interstellar Song Contest and then just laughing maniacally. And at that point, I got shut off.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a political statement yet? No, the whole thing is I refuse to read any political message in the Interstellar Song Contest on account of feeling it is just so badly composed that it makes absolutely no sense. Asterisks except Duggadoo, which is easily the best thing about it. Mercifully over as quickly as you like it to be. I think it's Amy next.
It was okay. I was insanely excited about the appearance of a certain guest star, and I was hoping that would be explained, and it has as yet not been.
Who was that? Graham Norton? Ryan?
No.
Well, I assumed it was simply an indication that at some point the government had decided that his cultural importance was so extraordinary that it had to be preserved for the future.
With Graham Norton, I liked the whole why did I sell my likeness for perpetuity? But there was a certain vision that the Doctor had, and I'm trying not to be too spoilerific for people who don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
Of a very early
yes
companion.
I thought you meant the other bloke, the other presenter of the thing.
No, not
okay, good.
I can't say about what Amy's alluding to, so maybe
yes. No, fair enough.
I will definitely make it into my videos. Yeah.
The thing is, I was going to say that I really enjoyed it, and then I remembered the stuff when you were talking, Andy. I remembered all the stuff I didn't enjoy. I mean, the horns, I felt was just one of many unsubtle little details, but
I'm a hellion and my name is Kid.
I mean, yeah. Sorry, you're sending me to a bad place. But I like the funny bits, and I like the stuff. The fact that a lot of it was in corridors, and the two blokes who were able to do stuff. Sorry, that's as sophisticated as I can sound on this one. I think this is where the season started to have bits that made me sort of slap my forehead slightly. But I'm sure I make other people slap their foreheads. So who am I to criticize?
I saw a lot of movement and fandom of this being the episode where people were like, "Oh, nah, Doctor Who's not for me anymore," and I didn't quite understand why that. I know I felt it was an incredibly bad episode, but I didn't understand why that was kind of the tipping point. Maybe it's just people that kind of should stepped away from Doctor Who a while ago and given it a little bit of a rest.
It wasn't that bad. It was okay. Like, it wasn't exceptionally good, but it was like probably pretty average, really.
I know there was one commentator who said that it was the revelation at the end when X turns into X squared.
I see. I enjoyed that bit.
I wasn't.
I like the way that they kind of completely distract you from that person, and then right at the end going like, "Oh yeah, they were there, weren't they?"
Yeah, right. So I didn't love it, but I didn't object to it either. And I think, as Andy was saying, the reason that some people, if a person citing that as a reason to step away, I think they already wanted to step away. They just hadn't realised it yet, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if they sat through 3 years of Chris Chibnall, like, what's wrong with them? I didn't. And look at me, I'm fine, well adjusted. Okay, Wish World. So I enjoyed it well enough. I realized part of that was naivety in my account as to what came next. But it had all, much like The Legend of Ruby Sunday last year, it had all the hallmarks of a really well put together part 1 of 2. Sort of ascending action. Lovely seeing Millie Gibson back again. Yeah, there's, as I said in my video, there's kind of like a sociology of Doctor Who universe. The Whoniverse concept feels properly realized at this point. So, so taken in isolation, yes, I quite enjoyed Wish World, and the sort of the whole the Doctor is straight now. He's a hetero. You okay, kids? It's fun.
I enjoyed Wish World, and particularly its strange surrealism, and we're talking about potential Discworldy related episodes. I could possibly put Wish World into that category.
I don't know. It had little bits that stirred the sleeping pedant, and like I said earlier, I try not to indulge that. My confession would be that there were times when the RTD was running the show originally, times when I really didn't enjoy it at all, and it was usually the finales, which I felt sometimes the latter finales tended to be lots of things all crammed into a space, and they didn't necessarily work. And because of that, I wasn't necessarily surprised that I didn't love the pre-finale this time. So I made allowances for it. I had things I liked in it. The cast. Andy, if I can ask you your point about point you made about the Doctor and Lynda waking up in bed together, and yes, there's the conspicuous thing of a character who apparently attracted to men being in bed with a woman. But do you think it would have? Because I thought about it, and had it been any other Doctor in bed with their companion, I kind of feel like it probably would have felt just as unreal, because maybe with one or two exceptions, that's not supposed to happen in Doctor Who. It's inherently, you know, that this is unreal, that this is happening, and that's not me waving away the fact that Ncuti's version of the Doctor is clearly attracted to men. I just wondered to what extent whether it hinges entirely on that factor, or whether or not it's just the fact that the Doctor in bed with his companion is something that tells you that this world isn't real.
I actually hadn't thought about that, but you're entirely right. You know, despite the McGann of it, the Billy Piper, the Rogue, yeah, those are still feel like kind of anomalies, and by the sort of the queerness of Ncuti's Doctor acts as an extra layer to make that opening of Wishworld much more joyful.
Funny enough, I've just remembered there was a late 90s Doctor Who magazine comic strip in which Paul McGann's Doctor wakes up in bed with Grace Holloway and it's all been a dream. Only obviously he's woken up in a world that isn't real, right? Sorry, I love a coincidence and similarity.
Sorry, Luke has just, and I have to, it definitely plays on it with the homophobia bit in unit. Luke, could you just remind me of what that is, or maybe it'll come to me?
Oh, that's the bit where the Doctor comments while he's in the unit office. He comments on somebody being a beautiful man, and the man reacts angrily to that.
Oh, yeah.
So no, that it as Luke says, that's definitely there later on in the episode. So it's despite what I was saying, it's certainly present.
But that's presumably because Cameron is homophobic.
Conrad.
Conrad.
Yeah.
Conrad,
that's clearly tied in with the non-existence of disabled people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unit was something else I wanted to mention about Wishworld, and it is again, it's a reprise of the end of last season, but how well that those unit characters are have been built to this point quite quickly. Think about it, and of course all ready for the spin-off series, the war between the land and the sea. Sorry, did everybody speak on Wishworld? Yeah. So the reality war. Okay. Bone Beast's cool. Guest stars. Well, how many? The late episode guest star. Pretty cool. Essentially, it was a whole. Yeah. I feel like it was a whole bunch of stuff just thrown at the wall. I'm still making sense of it. I'm still finding it a pain to rewatch, a slog to get through. In some ways, I'm not exactly sure why, but I prefer Interstellar Song Contest to it. I think it might be something to do with, because Interstellar Song Contest was over quickly.
And it has a a clear idea.
Yes, it's a very simple. It's a much simpler, too simple, but it knows what it wants to do. Whereas Reality War is a bit.
Reality War is there are a lot of ideas in here. I'm not sure they all go together.
See, if you'd asked me 5 minutes after it had ended on Saturday night, I would be quite willing to tell you at length all the ways in which it hurt. But I sort of got over that a bit because
you got through it on Saturday, did you?
I mean, I did text the words "make it stop" to a friend halfway through, but
Amy, you remember Saturday night after our caption meeting? I said, right, I'm off to watch Doctor Who now. Ooh, it's going to be great.
But
6 a.m. Monday morning.
like I say, I
3 minutes to go.
Well, I do feel sorry for you, Andy, particularly having to make a video about it because, what do you say?
Yeah, it's such a different thing because I'm not watching it as a viewer now. I'm watching it as a producer, and I wonder if I was just watching the last 2 series. If I'd just been watching it as a viewer, would I have sort of said, right, that's it. I don't need to see this anymore. I certainly would be looking at it differently. And now I'm questioning, do I want to make more episodes if the show comes back? I think if I was just a viewer, that would be kind of it for me. Yeah, weird.
Yeah.
Daily Blase, thank you very much for coming by and for hanging out and commenting. You have a good rest and restore, my friend. And I look forward to seeing you through the week. It's worth a plug for Daily Blase's Friday live stream, which is one of my favorite things in UK politics. It's called Friday Frolics. It's on 5 o'clock, and it's a very light, like a variety show of political discussion. And it's a really good sort of place to sort of process everything that's happened and also chill out and have fun with a warm community. So, I'll have to put a link for this for that in the comments. And if anybody has any other ideas for links I can put in the comments or things to mention, please drop them in the chat. So Reality War, anything else to say on that?
All right, I find
you don't have to. I don't want to
like
take
a challenge.
I
was going to find something that I liked about it. But right, so I the whole series I have liked the character of Lynda. I don't think that's necessarily because of the characterization. I think it's because of the actress. I think she's done a really good job, and I like the idea of a nurse being. A few years ago, I had a protracted health issue, nothing terribly serious, but it meant I saw nurses twice a week, and it reminded me, I shouldn't have needed reminding, that, yes, doctors are part of the health service, but a hell of a lot of nurses are too. And lots of them are extremely useful people, and that it's good that Martha was a doctor, but it's maybe a shame that we've had to wait this long for a nurse to be a companion. And so I like the character of Lynda. I didn't like the fact that one of the lead actors in the show was stuck in a box for the finale. But I know I'm not alone in that. Stuck in a box holding a baby. But her final scenes, even if we don't like where the character has ended up, we may or may not, I thought she delivered them with sort of conviction and warmth, which likewise Ncuti, right? And I do fundamentally like I was always the Doctor's going to regenerate. I'm much more into the idea that he does it to save a single life than the universe. Obviously both are valuable, but I'm more of a Case of Androzani fan than a something much more epic. So I like the idea that Ncuti's regeneration was just trying to save one life, one innocent life. And I also liked the guy playing Conrad, no less vile, but he played the character with a sort of innocence this time. So you could imagine when he's interacting with Mrs. Flood that there's sort of almost like the mum he wished he'd had kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, I liked that was toned down a bit this time around. Yeah, that's a good point.
So the Conrad thing, I kind of get the, even more in this one that he does believe his own hype and that he strongly believes he is in the right, which, is often the cause of great evil when people think they're very, very right and they don't question it.
Indeed. Another definition I read once that I've always liked because it's very practical is evil is when you mistake wanting something for having a right to it. That's David Gemmell, writes books about swords. And axes. But yeah, so I could find positive things to say. I overall didn't enjoy it, but
I didn't quite understand the whole baby thing.
I didn't try to understand the whole baby thing. I didn't feel the need to try and understand.
I think that's sort of where it fell down for me. Is that it's like I'm not following this baby thing.
I think one common factor between Interstellar and that episode, and I apologize to people like Luke who really dug the last episode, but this idea that it has been written for children now, or that's an
that
element
one
of it.
wasn't.
There's a simplicity in yeah. Oh God, it's amazing what you say when you further scrutinize them. But there's a simplicity in the idea of, you know, this baby who is a god who, you know, you kiss and you blow out to make a wish and that changes reality. You know, didn't we do that? Wasn't that a thing, blowing out for make a wish? There's a simplicity there that seems very much like a children's text kind of thing. And yeah, maybe that's why a lot of people have said not for me any longer, because it does seem to be targeting children's, you know, it's a children's programming aspects. Although, you know,
I'm not sure how accessible it is to new viewers, because they make a lot of references that new viewers will not get, and do not explain them.
I wonder, is there an element of what's the phrase?
Fan service?
I was going to be a bit more nastier about it, like something about, like, you know, throwing your balls about and just, you know, the boastiness of it, like, oh, look at, I've got all these 62 years of history, so I'm bigger than you, you know, and that's why you should come and watch my TV show. I wonder, is there an element of that about it? It certainly probably isn't gonna. Well, it seems like a childish boast, but I don't know how helpful that is going to be about drawing in new viewers.
Yeah, because it's like, for me, who has seen them all, I'm you know, lands great with me, but I do wonder how it lands with new viewers who are just like, what?
Well, I guess as somebody who does identify as a non-Whovian, yeah, I have no problem being on a base level being referred to these characters and monsters from yesteryear, and even, you know, being told what by the text a little bit like the text saying, "I know more than you do," but okay, yeah, probably. But just at some level, it just really doesn't work for me. I don't know if the non-Whovian thing is specifically helpful in critiquing that. The comparative point is Russell T Davies' first run, where he maybe just saved these classic references for like the last couple of episodes and kind of used the Time War to sort of cut out any kind of or most of the sort of the ancestral stuff. And I guess that seemed to work. That seemed to work for me anyway. That sort of like halfway towards a fresh start.
It's something I have found a little surprising, which is because you make the point about Davies' first series, and because I think if you look at that, whether you enjoyed it all or not, I think it demonstrated that he really, really knew what he was doing about relaunching an old show to an audience that he wasn't expecting them all to be steeped in it. He wasn't expecting them all to be fans. He knew how to grab hold of an audience who were not Doctor Who fans. And let's not forget, most people who've watched Doctor Who in its existence are not Doctor Who fans. They're just people watching television. I assume. I've not done the maths, but so I'm surprised at the extent to which he's thrown stuff in. And I see a comment from Luke has just come up. The other thing is, if you change an old character so much, why even keep them as that? That absolutely right. Which is also something Davies did do in his first run as well, to a smaller extent. I know there were some people very frustrated that the new Cybermen suddenly became the standard Cybermen, and that they wanted the old ones back and without the letter C on their chest. But so no, Andy, I think your point is right about the exclusivity of it.
I'm gonna put Luke's other comment on screen a minute, but just before I do, the one that's on now, I've seen some new viewers get interested in looking into old Who, but others who have been put off. I think that hints at one of the best things Russell T Davies and Bad Wolf Studios have done with New Who, in terms of getting them all up on iPlayer.
Yeah.
That is one of the greatest things in New Who.
Yeah.
And the iPlayer is such a huge waste, because the BBC has such a rich production history, and there should be so much more on it. And I think the Doctor Who archive is probably one of the greatest things to happen to iPlayer. Just utterly fantastic. So that's something that'll stand for some time, I think.
One of the things I thought they might have done with the villain at the end was address the timeless child.
Actually, it almost seems
nothing.
So
just monster, basically.
I may not have been paying attention. That's definitely possible. But I thought the point of the timeless child was that the Doctor wasn't a Time Lord. That he wasn't of Gallifrey, that he was of a different species, right? So even if you factor in that character X didn't know that, a lot of the stuff that he's saying in that last episode suddenly appears to have waved that away. Maybe I wasn't paying attention.
Well, I mean, I got the impression, it was sort of like, it's hard to do this without any spoilers,
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. It said character, very important to Time Lord history, would probably have known how the Doctor, the Timeless Child, was involved with that.
That's a good point. Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah.
Just doing a bit of Chibnall trolling from the comments here. Never even seen that episode. No idea what happens in it. Sorry. Not sorry.
Yeah. No, it's a. I won't restate what everyone else is saying. It's it's odd to bring something back and then not use it.
Because it is sort of like they've acknowledged it enough that they've not kind of just gone, oh, we're going to forget about this idea.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So it was odd that it didn't, as you say, it didn't feature at all. Seemingly, in fact, it was almost implied not to be. But hey,
has much of somebody who hasn't seen any of the Chibnall era, bar about 4 episodes, but none of the arc important ones. So I gather Timeless Child changed canon quite a bit, very unpopular. So what has actually come up in the new series that Chibnall has done, the big canon heavy stuff that has been integrated?
Well, so the presence of, I stand to be corrected here, but the presence of the fugitive Doctor in the story in the Engine, because she was established, unless I misunderstood, as being a Doctor pre-Hartnell. And there's this whole the Timeless Child thing is the idea that the Doctor has existed for many, countless lives before the first one we saw on television. So any acknowledgement of that idea is acknowledging the Timeless Child idea, I think. So maybe wrong, but
I've seen like about an episode or maybe two with Joe Martin from the Chibnall era, and if we had have had Joe Martin in that season finale, you know, that would have been freaking awesome. The crowds would have went wild. And I hope you know what that wink was for. We're treading softly on spoilers because a few people haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Wow, that would have Joe Martin. Wow.
Yeah.
I think there's a consensus in fandom around that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Everybody loves Joe.
So
much presence.
Well, I do anyway.
Well, no. So
I don't think there's any consensus in fandom.
I disagree.
Especially Doctor Who fandom.
So I have to say, for the first 5 minutes of Jo Martin in her first episode, I wasn't convinced. But this will sound weird. I particularly like the way she looks over the top of her glasses. For some reason, it sort of, if any physical gesture conveys a character, it's that one. Also, there's a character in the last episode from the Chibnall years who I didn't necessarily enjoy all aspects of their performance during the Chibnall years, but I was really pleased to see them. That was a nice reaction as someone who wasn't a particular fan of that period. The fact I was glad to see them again, it brightened my day briefly.
Great stuff. We are, Amy, I said you'd pop in for 10 minutes. You're here an hour and a half later, or 2 hours and a half later. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm tired now.
Yeah. Let's begin the wind up. It's been a really, really great stream. Above my expectations. So that's really good. I just want to talk about very quickly about a few things on my YouTube channel, and then I'll sort of begin to wind
Actually,
up.
I'm sorry, Andy, but if you don't mind me interrupting just momentarily, I am going to have to go in a few moments just because I have dogs and things. So do you mind if I bow out now?
Tristan, give us where should we look for you online, or do you want to throw in a link or anything?
I think the only thing to advertise, if people want to read my whisperings, then they can find the Nightmare Man Facebook group. Did I say group? Right, it's Facebook group.
You did say Facebook group.
Well, at least I acknowledged it, right? Okay. The Facebook group, and if anyone is really interested in ghost stories for Christmas on television and radio, I have written a book called The Complete Holly Wraiths, which is on Amazon. There's a spin-off volume that's had a single savage, unfair review of 1 star, but 11 people have said that the full version is a 5-star effort. So, swings and roundabouts. But yeah, that's it really.
That's great. Thank you very much, Tristan, for joining us, and I hope you can pop in when we do the Press Gang Readers commentaries.
For sure.
Ahead. We'll have a wee chat about that behind the backstage.
Scenes. Absolutely. Right. Well, have a good rest of your stream, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Ta-da.
Cheers. Amy, have you done the Always Sunny trip yet?
No.
Really, show I'm really passionate about. So I definitely continue to do. I do 200-second reviews of episodes of Always Sunny. I think we're coming up to about 200 episodes on air. I'm about 60 episodes into my reviews, and it's one of the things I love about it is when you think about sitcoms, a lot of them are studio based sitcoms, or they're owned by big corporations. Sunny is a very sort of small, organic thing. The people who produced the pilot, the writers and actors, still own the rights to this show, still are producers with creative control. And it speaks very much to the stuff we were talking about with regards to Caption Comics Festival and the sort of independent comic scene. So if you're on YouTube on Sundays, check out that 200 seconds Sunny videos. There's also about 60 of them on my channel. Gull asks, why, when is there only one TARDIS left in the universe? Did I hit my head during the giggle? I think everybody hit their head during the giggle a bit.
There should be more than one.
There should be more than one. Well, it was that whole bubble universe in The Doctor's Wife. There was all the bits of scrap TARDIS. I think the explanation might be bad writing. So,
I mean, you can argue the Doctor ends up in a parallel universe at the end. But the whole only one TARDIS thing was before that.
He might have. Has there ever been or maybe I'm making up a case of like a TARDIS inside another TARDIS? You know, like those.
Yeah, that's happened. That's happened. Yeah.
Maybe there's one of the rooms in a TARDIS.
That's a bad thing.
Still has a TARDIS. It's bad, is it? All right, it's not approved practice. Okay. No. All right. It's always, I've always wondered why the show, now maybe Big finished it differently, but why the show doesn't go into how big the TARDIS is. I mean, what we're taught about the TARDIS, you know, there could be a room off to the side that's the size of an IKEA. Why do we
sometimes there is.
Why do we never see
a swimming pool in there?
There's a what?
There's a swimming pool in there.
We've seen a swimming pool. We've seen the toilets.
Mm-hmm.
We know there's a wardrobe. I don't know if we've seen much else, have we?
Depends when.
A control room.
But yeah, usually they're just in the control room, and very occasionally you'll see other parts of the TARDIS.
So I want to thank our first guest, who's long gone, my PJ Hart, who does co-hosts a podcast with me about Terry Pratchett's Discworld series. It's called I've Never Read Discworld. I'm the I've Never Read, and PJ is a read Discworld. So we did month by month looking at a book, and you can find that on, if you go to youtube.com/@DiscworldGNU, and we're also on Facebook and Blue Sky at DiscworldGNU if you need to find us there. Amy, thank you so much for absolutely dedicating to the invite tonight. Amy has a webcomic called Epic Fail, which I think is on hiatus for now.
Yeah, well, it's I got scraped by AI, so now I'm thinking, I might just leave up all of the comics that I have online so far and just release the others as just print versions and not put them on the internet.
I thought that was one of the more interesting chats you had in your interview with Kurt Soto of Two Geeks Talking. I think I'm in charge of the history of webcomics panel. I would love to have you on that, but our fellow committee member, Emily Brady, is on that, so we probably should stuff it to Emily. There's a link now in chat to Amy's website, amulets.com. You find out more about her.
That leads to all the stuff. So,
all her stuff, her Oxford Art School, her portfolio.
The webcomic.
Amy's also on Patreon at, is it Amulets, is it?
Good question. I think it's still Epic Fail.
Oh, it's still Epic Fail. Right.
Yeah.
And Amy is the chair, as I mentioned, the Caption Comics Festival, which is the most unusual. So I made a video about this, marketing as the weirdest comics festival in the UK, because I wanted to capture people's attention. I don't think it's the weirdest at all. I don't even think it's remotely weird. It's actually the normalest.
Mis-selling, man.
Mis-selling. And you know what? It's also
perhaps it's something we can, we can have ambitions towards. Maybe, we're aspiring to be the weirdest festival.
I have another word to sell it, but I didn't want to use this one for the most British comics festival in UK. And that sounds like some kind of racist comics festival, right? But it's this idea of sitting around drinking tea and having a bit of crack with your mates and drinking beer, and that it's a very homely, the homeliest comics festival in UK. That would have been a much better title now. So that's you can get tickets to that at captionfestival.com.
.co.uk.
Oh, thank you. I'd almost finished. And it's just a really nice weekend. And I'm really looking forward to it because I haven't traveled anywhere in a few years. Although I'll be sort of on duty, it'll be a chance to connect with old friends and new friends, and just, it's the thing. Even when you're running it, it's a relaxing thing. You can get into the zone of putting your feet up without neglecting your duties. So if you want to join me and join Amy there, please come along. You've been made to feel very welcome. And that's not just from us, that's the general vibe. You will find people to talk to, and they'll find you. So yes, thank you to everybody in chat who has popped in and given us some feedback. Luke, particularly in this last bit, I see we're down to one viewer. That might be Luke. Anything? Anything else you want to pimp? Say?
They weren't expecting us to go on as long either, were they? Thank you for sticking with us to the end.
Yes, thank you very much.
Brave friend.
And I'd love to do this again sometime with. No, I was going to say with script or with more steering, but you know what? It was brilliant. It was really good. So yeah, see you again. Good night, folks.
Good night.
Night.
So long.